Today, we are peeling back the layers of history to get at the hidden engineering genius behind one of antiquity's greatest empires, the Achaemenids. But we're not going to be looking at their famous roads or their legendary armies. Nope. We're going to sea to explore their powerful, sophisticated, and honestly largely forgotten naval machine.
So, when you picture the Achaemenid Persian Empire, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Seriously, just take a second. What do you see?
I'm willing to bet it's something like this, right? Vast land armies marching across continents, or maybe the famous royal road connecting a sprawling empire. You might even picture deserts, camels, and these grand palaces like Persepolis. And you'd be right, but that's only half the story.
Because what if I told you that this empire, this classic land empire, was also one of the ancient world's most formidable sea powers? I'm talking about a naval force built on an industrial scale that could go toe-to-toe with the famed naval powers of Greece. Yeah, it's time we talk about their forgotten navy.
You know, a naval superpower like this doesn't just appear out of nowhere. See, behind those legions of the immortals, the Achaemenids were commanding the seas, and they did it by building one of the most sophisticated shipbuilding industries of the ancient world. This is how they projected power from the Nile all the way to the shores of Greece.
So, where did all this power come from? Well, it wasn't just one city or one region. The Achaemenids did something brilliant. They leveraged the diverse skills from all across their massive territory, creating this incredibly coordinated multinational network of specialized shipyards.
And this network? Wow, it was a marvel of organization, almost like a modern multinational corporation. Each region had its own special job. You had Phoenicia, that was the industrial heartland, just churning out state-of-the-art triremes. Then there's Egypt, with its long history on the Nile. They focused on the heavy lifters, these massive vessels for logistics. Cyprus and Anatolia were kind of like the R&D hubs, experimenting with new hybrid designs. And down in the Persian Gulf, they were using local date palm timber to make these lighter, faster ships, perfect for the region. This wasn't an accident. It was a deliberately organized system built for maximum efficiency and power.
Okay, so we know where they built them. But how exactly did they put together these ships that ended up dominating the seas? Well, the technology they were using was both ancient and, for its time, unbelievably advanced.
The secret sauce was something called the mortise and tenon joint. This thing was the absolute gold standard. Just imagine a wooden tongue, the tenon, fitting perfectly into a wooden slot, the mortise, locking two planks together. Now here's the genius part. When these joints hit the water, the wood would swell, creating this incredibly tight, strong, and yet flexible bond. This technique meant the hull was basically one solid, powerful piece, ready to handle crashing waves or even ramming right into an enemy ship.
The actual build followed this really precise six-step process that they learned from their Phoenician subjects. But what's so unique here is the whole first method. See, they didn't build a skeleton and then wrap it in skin. No, they started with the backbone, the keel, and then they meticulously added these steam-bent planks, locking each one to the next with those incredible mortise and tenon joints. This created a strong outer shell first. It was only after that shell was complete that they'd install the internal ribs for reinforcement, followed by the decking, and finally, that all-important waterproofing.
And this is where the Persians had a huge, almost unfair geographical advantage. Their empire had direct access to the oil seeps of Mesopotamia, which produced bitumen, basically a natural asphalt. And this stuff, it was a complete game changer. It created a nearly perfect waterproof seal that also protected the hull from those pesky wood-boring marine parasites. This drastically increased the lifespan and the reliability of their ships, especially the ones operating in the Persian Gulf.
So what kind of ships was this whole industrial machine producing? Well, it definitely wasn't a one-size-fits-all navy. They built a really diverse fleet, where each and every ship was engineered for a very specific job.
Just take their main warship, the trireme. To get a sense of the sheer scale here, just picture this. 170 men, all rowing in perfect sync, turning this 40-meter-long vessel into what was essentially a guided missile on the water. The amount of manpower, training, and coordination that takes is, well, it's just staggering to think about.
This comparison really shows you how form followed function in the Achaemenid fleet. On one hand, you've got the trireme, engineered purely for combat. It's a sleek predator, with a narrow hull for speed and a big bronze ram for the kill. And on the other hand, you have the heavy transports. These were the absolute backbone of imperial logistics, built wide and deep, kind of like floating warehouses, to move everything from cavalry to massive siege engines across the sea. You can't run an empire with warships alone. You need the workhorses too.
This just shows two sides of the same brilliant engineering philosophy: purpose-built design.
All right, so when you put all these pieces together, the network of shipyards, the advanced construction techniques, the specialized fleet, what does it all add up to? Well, it adds up to a true naval advantage that has been seriously underestimated by history.
So what was the secret to Achaemenid naval dominance? The thing is, it wasn't one single innovation. It was the powerful system they built. They combined a multinational industrial network for mass production with standardized designs, which made repairs way easier. They leveraged unique materials, like that bitumen and the legendary Lebanese cedar. And, most importantly, they absorbed and hybridized the absolute best shipbuilding tech from every culture that came across. They didn't just have a fleet, they had a fully integrated naval machine.
And all of this leaves us with a final thought. When you recognize this sophisticated engineering legacy, it forces you to ask a pretty big question. How does it change our view of ancient empires? Maybe we should see them less as these monolithic land powers and more as complex, adaptable societies that mastered technology not just on land, but on the sea as well. The silent shipyards of the Achaemenids tell a story of engineering genius that's every bit as impressive as any road or palace they left behind.